This is the Ohio AgNet from the voice you know at the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF and Veltima fungicide, the proven #1 for the toughest corn diseases with long-lasting residual when you need to be confident your fungicide will perform. I'm Ty Higgins. Powered by soy biodiesel, our next monthly check-in at Farm Credit Mid-America will be later today. Tune in at midday as we discuss the latest Farm Credit Mid-America news and updates. And join the Ohio AgNet on Friday as Dusty travels to Seneca County to visit with Brett Margriff about the changes his family's making to their farm with livestock and regenerative agriculture. The Field Leader Roadshow, sponsored by the Ohio Soybean Council and Soybean Checkoff. New and now at OhioAgNet.com, a major win for the ethanol industry and corn growers moved through Washington this week. The U.S. House has passed legislation allowing the nationwide year-round sale of E15, fuel blended with 15% ethanol. Supporters say the move would provide greater certainty for fuel retailers, strengthen domestic energy production, and increase demand for American-grown corn. The bill, known as the Nationwide Consumer and Fuel Retailer Choice Act, passed the House on a bipartisan vote and now heads to the Senate for consideration. Backers of the legislation say E15 often sells for less than traditional E10 gasoline and could help lower fuel costs for consumers while supporting rural economies and ethanol production. You can read more about the passage of year-round E15 online at OhioAgNet.com. Let's check in with our weekly update from the Ohio Soybean Council and your checkoff dollars at work. Here's Dusty Sonnenberg.
I'm joined today by Taylor Dill, Director of Research at the Ohio Soybean Council. And Taylor, weed control is something we need to keep in mind in the spring. And they always say a small weed is easier to control or kill than a large weed.
Absolutely. I believe you want to keep them at bay at 4 inches if you can. And I realize in northern Ohio where it's wet, it might be a little more difficult to do right now, but maybe getting that burn down and a residual on so you can get through planting with as clean a field as possible in your first 60 days for the crop life is really a good target.
Now, an Ohio Soybean Council-funded study looked at weed control in early planted soybeans withstand concerns in lower populations.
Our best herbicide treatment was to spray 2 post applications and add a residual to the last post. That provided the best weed control and the highest yields. It's important to mention, though, that pre-emergence herbicides are still important, but when you have such a decrease in population as we've seen in our research, 2 post applications may still be needed, given there may be a lot of gaps in the field.
And this update brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your Soybean Checkoff.
Thank you, Dusty. Time for the forecast, brought to you by Seed Consultants, simply better performance, online at seedconsultants.com. Here's Ryan Martin.
Chilly start here this morning, but as winds go west and southwest today, we will see temperatures moderate this afternoon. Should see a partly to mostly sunny sky tomorrow as well, although I can't rule out a renegade shower or two in far west, central, southwestern parts of the state tomorrow afternoon and evening. In my mind, the better precipitation setup comes from the weekend all the way through midweek next week. I'm penciling in chances for showers and thunderstorms for this weekend on probably a 40 to 60% coverage basis. Then Monday, Tuesday of next week, yeah, we definitely get it. I think the best way to look at this is for the 4-day stretch, Saturday morning through Wednesday morning. I think we're going to be looking at rain totals anywhere from a half to 2 inches, 100% coverage across Ohio. Then we go dry for almost a solid week. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Ryan. Great visit yesterday with Burns Farms in Union County. Curtis was my host for Feeding Farmers Week number 4 with Paradise Energy Solutions and Ag Revolution. He's got a lot going on there. They've got a feed mill, they've got some hog barns, and they're starting to think about getting into row crops in 2027. I asked him, with all that in mind, right now, what keeps him up at night?
Well, I think right now for us, my dad and my older brother that run this mill, is the fuel cost right now. We've seen for a few weeks of deliveries a $3 spike in fuel. Now we're down to maybe $2 a gallon higher than what it was a couple months ago. But that's the biggest thing, because at some point it goes somewhere. Someone's paying for it, and that's the hard pill to swallow. You don't like doing that, but you can't eat it yourself.
The video of our full conversation is at OhioAgNet.com and on Ohio AgNet TV on YouTube. In other farm news, Creative Solutions becoming a vibrant business for an Ohio 3D farmer. With that story, here's Allison Kinney.
Innovation often begins with solving a problem close to home. For Adam Farmer, that problem was finding toys that matched the interest, were fun, and brought enjoyment to his sons with autism. What started as a way to bring them joy has since grown into Ohio 3D Farmer, a Western Ohio business creating detailed grain bins, elevators, and farm layouts through 3D printing. Adam shared how the idea first began with the interests of his children. Our two sons became fascinated with my old farm toys, Farmer said. They were also enamored by the farming operations in our local area. The boys were especially attracted to the various grain setups throughout our rural community in Western Ohio. They even came up with their own term for the grain bin, calling them tablets. Farmer's wife Stacy began searching for grain bins and accessories to help the boys build their own farm scenes at home. However, she found there were few options available, and what could be found was expensive and not designed for child's play. Stacy concluded that I should acquire a 3D printer and make the farm items myself, Farmer said. For the rest of the story behind Adam Farmer and his Ohio 3D Farmer story, please visit OCJ.com. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Allison Kinney reporting.
Thank you, Allison. One expert says Ohio soybeans are a mess. Find out why with our featured audio next on the Ohio AgNet.
Hi, I'm Tyler Miller, a soybean farmer from Crawford County. When I grow soybeans, I'm not just raising a crop, I'm creating fuel at home. Biodiesel adds nearly $2 to our bushel price and strengthens our energy independence. If you're not using biodiesel on your farm, now's the time. If you're not sure how to get it, ask your local fuel supplier. Ready to turn last year's crop into this year's fuel? Learn more at soyohio.org.
This message is brought to you by Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Looking for heavy equipment but don't know where to buy? Purple Wave Auction has you covered. Always online and always no reserve. It's your destination for construction or ag equipment ready to work. We even sell semis, trailers, and fleet equipment for your operation. Best part? It's free to join. Head to purplewave.com. That's purplewave.com. Sign up for a free account and start bidding today. Purple Wave Auction, the easiest and most straightforward way to buy and sell equipment.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins. What's the state of soybeans across Ohio? With today's featured audio, here's Joe Everett.
Today I'm visiting with Bill Bowers, grower support with Bayer, and we're at the Conover Research Facility here in Conover. Let's talk about the soybean season so far.
Long story short, Joe, these soybeans are a mess. Lots going on in the field. The heavy freeze, as of this recording, is 11 days ago now, and all different manners of damage and survivability depending on management style. Soybeans are currently recovering. This week is the first week we've been able to make the call on some management decisions, how we'll go in and fix these soybean crops. Just in time for some additional threats to come in that we typically see in the growing season. So we're not out of the woods yet. We'll spend this weekend fixing these soybean stands and manage them the best that we can.
Now, as we went out and walked earlier and looked at some of these soybeans, there's always a magic number on the population. What's your advice about a good stand and how many you like to see out there?
For me, and we can argue this point, and that's fine, I'd like to see them over 80,000. If the stands get thinned out too much below 80,000, I think we start to leave yield potential on the table. I think we'll start to have some weed control trouble. And so if it dips too far below that 100 and gets down to that 80,000 mark, I want to go back out and doctor up these stands a little bit. Possibly not a full rate, partial rate, just something to fill in those gaps and protect the yield potential that we've got in the field. You always learn the answer too late at the end of the season, but come August, the foxtail will tell you where you should have gone out and replanted and didn't. Where the stand got too thin, we didn't get the canopy coverage that we needed. Those foxtail will come in August, and we'll learn for the next time around. But to protect the yield potential, maintain that canopy, I want these populations north of 80, even in a replant scenario.
And the big talk is always get in your soybeans early for best yield potential. Even though we've thinned some of these out and have to go and replant, good yield potential still out there?
Absolutely. Soybeans are amazingly resilient. As ornery as they are to manage, and chasing those 100 bushel beans is just more difficult than 300 bushel corn. But they're amazingly resilient, and if we manage them through this, we can still bring in a tremendous soybean crop. If you think of the components of yield, pod count, seed size, population. The other two are still up in the air. We can still got a shot at those. Population is the number right now we're trying to manage. So let's make sure we got the appropriate plant count in the field to set us up later in the season for good yield potential. We still have plenty of potential in these beans. We got to get the populations right, and then as we move in season, start to manage that pod count and seed size as we go through the growing season.
And as we walk these fields, what are kind of the main things you want growers to look at?
Well, let's look at consistency of stand. Each field has some variability. Where we saw the most freeze damage is in the heavy fodder areas. Conventional guys got off pretty easy this time around. So if you're minimum till or no till, look for those areas in the field that typically have good corn yields, heavy fodder, or places where fodder tends to float and move in a heavy rain where we've had deeper fodder. Look for damage there. Let's make sure we scout those first and get those populations where they need to be. With the amount of rain that we've had recently, we'll assume that there's a spike in water mold, which is going to bring seedling disease. So that's going to be the next wave of things. If the stand that we do have that has survived, we want to make sure it doesn't dampen and go backwards because of disease pressure and seedling blight. And then the big news this week has been slug hatch. The slugs are out and working on these beans. The cool weather has the beans stalled out, which is wonderful if you're a slug. We get the heat turned on and get some growth in these beans, they can outgrow the slug pressure. But for as long as it stays cool and growing slow, slug pressure could be a potential concern, pulling those populations back even further.
Well, thanks. I've been visiting with Bill Bowers with Bayer Crop Sciences from the Conover Research Facility. I'm Joe Everett for the Ohio AgNet reporting.
Thank you, Joe. Markets and analysis next as the Ohio AgNet continues. Wake up, Ohio farmers! Ohio's Country Journal is bringing the coffee to you. We're stopping by rural coffee shops, diners, and your favorite morning gathering spots across the state. And while we're there, the first 25 folks through the door get a free cup of coffee, a limited edition Ohio's Country Journal mug, and the latest issue of OCJ, all on us. Want us to visit your hometown hangout? Head to ocj.com/coffee shop and sign up your local spot today. Brought to you by Leist Mercantile and Ohio's Country Journal, your source for Ohio farm news.
The way farmers get their information is expanding, and now there's a new dimension of farm news for the Buckeye State. Ohio AgNet TV. Learn from other farmers, see products and practices in action, and stay connected to what is happening both locally and nationally. Plus, watch expanded video coverage throughout the growing season and beyond with regular updates from the field and stories that highlight the people, issues, and innovations driving Ohio agriculture. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe now on YouTube by searching Ohio AgNet TV, where Ohio agriculture comes to life.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins, and today's market analysis is brought to you by Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to bring a brand new soybean crush facility to Upper Sandusky. Learn more about marketing your soybeans with LDC at 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets mixed as we finished out the midweek session Wednesday. Corn and beans tried to trade higher. Made a few new highs for the move, both in beans and corn on old crop, well, actually new crop and old crop respectively. The wheat market, after a limit-up move on Tuesday behind the supply and demand report, did nothing more than consolidate gains. There was expanded limits yesterday in wheat. We did not use those at all. We were up big as the market opened, but we could not hold that through the rest of the trading day. This market in wheat just trying to consolidate and find what the, quote, new normal is with reduced production out there. The main headline here from the overnight right on through the day today and honestly into tomorrow, Trump and Xi, Trump landed yesterday in Beijing. Talks happening today, which was our overnight last night. The headlines will hit the markets here through the day today, and we have more headlines likely coming tomorrow. Wild time. I'm Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Ryan. Overnight markets on the Ohio AgNet brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance. Online at seedconsultants.com. No change for front month May corn, 466 1/2. December new crop, 503 1/4, picking up a quarter penny. Soybeans for May down 7 1/4 overnight at 12.08 a bushel. November new crop, 12.04 3/4, down by 3 cents. And wheat for July, 3 cents to the good at 676 1/4. After yesterday's trade, live cattle for June up 5.10 at 252.80. Feeder cattle for August, 360.92 up 437. May lean hogs down 2 cents at $90.90. The June $100.87 up $2.45. This is the Ohio AgNet.